Have you ever dreamed of the mysterious forest on the slopes of Mount Olympus, where drops of divine nectar lull even the gods into eternal sleep? In boring Greek myths for sleep nectar suppliers of Olympus's hidden forest spring, we follow Euthymia the crystal nectar through misty trails where ancient trees whisper the words of Gaia, where night bells summon Morpheus, and where spiritual forces harmonize with the heartbeat of mankind. With just one sip of the mysterious purple nectar, all of Olympus will be immersed in a sweet dream with no way out. Join this journey to explore 12 poetic chapters where nectar and dreams blend, bringing you a peaceful night and a deep sleep. Amidst the foliage filled with the night mist, a faint path winds through the roots of ancient trees, leading deep into the heart of the secret forest on the slopes of Mount Olympus. No god can remember the way back after getting lost here, because the only sound that echoes is the rustling of leaves whispering, mixed with the soft mist lingering on the horizontal branches. The silvery light of the moon gently touches the wet ground, like drawing a shimmering silk ribbon, inviting tired souls to find a peaceful place where myths lie down to sleep. In the middle of the deep forest, there is a crystal-clear spring, called the Crystal Song. Water from underground flows through layers of ancient rocks, thousands of years old, filtering out all impurities, retaining only the gentle sound of nature. Legend has it that Hera once bathed here, leaving a blessing. Whoever drinks a sip of this crystal spring water will dream without worries. Since then, the water has become a precious gift for those with open minds but tired of the hustle and bustle of the world. Every early morning, when the dew still lingers on the leaves and the sparrows have yet to wake, Euthymia gently steps out from under the moss. She is one of the rare nymphs who still specializes in carrying nectar, the essence that mixes with the crystal springs to create the divine nectar that lulls Olympus into a dreamy state. Her figure is as graceful as the morning sun, her bare feet gliding lightly on the green moss, her basket made of lotus pods filled with shimmering drops of nectar. Each step Euthymia takes is like a lullaby, making the quiet path even warmer. The crystal spring was just big enough for her to scoop up a small ladleful, mixing it with the nectar in a giant olive leaf cup. The hand-woven cup held each drop of clear nectar, and was never full, for whenever Euthymia tilted it slightly, the last drop would slip away, as if leaving a space for the dream to continue. She placed the cup on the moss-covered stone pedestal, her eyes half closed, enjoying the gentle breeze that filtered through the natural glass window. In the whisper of the ancient tree, she murmured a prayer, made dreams gently flow, bringing the fairies to peace. Next, Euthymia folded her arms, stretched around the moss-covered rocks, and approached the edge of the small cliff. There, the singing insects continued to sing a wordless symphony. The chirping of cicadas, the soft flapping of butterflies, and the chirping of crickets drifted by her ears, all of it slowly blending into a gentle curtain of sound, making her feel completely light. Every time the wind blew, the insects would chirp a melodious tune, as if anticipating the sleeping god to look up. And then Morpheus, the god of dreams, once passed through the leaves to look at you. He was not clearly visible, leaving only a thin line of cold air caressing the back of her neck. He waited for the drops of nectar to be completed and released into the sea of dreams. In that moment, Euthymia became as fragile as a moon. Lotus she both fed the dreams and was enveloped in the dreamer's boundless arms. When the olive leaf cup was almost empty, the last silver rays of light gently shone through the leaves, signaling the dawn was quietly approaching. Euthymia bowed to the crystal stream, smiled softly, then turned back to the familiar path. Behind her, the forest turned to mist, the trees rustled, reminding her of tomorrow carrying nectar to the land of dreams. And when she disappeared, the whispering of the leaves still echoed, lulling the stream to continue its silent flow, bringing the scent of sleep to eternity. As she left the banks of the crystal stream, the dawn began to break through the foliage, painting the path with undulating patches of light. Euthymia, carrying the first basket of honey of the new day, walked slowly towards the dreaming city, where the gods were still awake in the world of dreams. The path passed through a carpet of yellow leaves, interspersed with entwined tree roots, unsteady, but steady, for she had worn out her shoes over the centuries, bringing sweet scents to the heart of Olympus. In the distance, the white dome of the dream city looms in the early morning mist. The curved towers, like crescents, are carved into the pale pink sky, welcoming the gentle sunlight. The walls are not high, just enough to block the cold wind, and below is a landscape of calm lotus ponds and gardens of love, where each tree trunk exudes the sweet scent of orchids. It is said that anyone who steps through the gate here will bring with them a peaceful soul, because Morpheus himself uses nectar to wash away all worries. Euthymia walked past the first pond, where white lotuses were opening their petals. Drops of honey were gently poured into the pond, creating a fragrant mist. The honey-rich steam mixed with the Greek calligraphy on the water, making the whole pond like a shimmering screen. The long dream peacock, the only species that can sing, showed off its golden feathers, collecting its brilliant sound into the birdsong. They flapped their wings around Euthymia as if escorting her to the vague palace area ahead. The stone steps, intact with the broken jade, led her up to the terrace where Morpheus sat on his throne of mist. He sat still, his figure flickering, his eyes reflecting a strange realm where gods were lost in dreams. As Euthymia approached, Morpheus nodded, inviting her closer. The nectar was supposed to be offered slowly to be effective, but she felt her heart flutter as she placed the olive leaf cup before the silver throne. Morpheus reached out, lifted the cup, and took a deep breath. The first sip of nectar slid down his throat. He closed his eyes, and the wall of dreams before him instantly opened up into a magical scene. The stars shattered into streaks of light, flowing through the dome of Olympus to decorate the dreams of the dynasty. In that moment, Morpheus became as fragile as a mist, awakening in her the illusion of the music of the universe. She continued to offer a second or third glass. Each drop of nectar spread a different story. The daredevil who dared to remake the sky into silk, the goddess of love gently touching the heart of a lover, the titans scattered in the labyrinth of the old era. And when the last glass was set down, Morpheus nodded slightly, as if approving the symphony of dreams that only crystal nectar could control. After the honey offering, Morpheus gently stroked the air, and the opaque gates to the palace of dreams slowly opened. Light poured from the arches, touching the smoky stone floor, making Euthymia feel as if she were lost in a mythical maze with each step. The walls were covered with delicate reliefs depicting illusory dreams, people transformed into white birds flying over deserted islands, pure people reminiscing about their childhood in the vernacular, or gods transformed into sorcerers etching the minds of men. Euthymia did not enter the temple directly but went through the small side gates, where the breeze wafted the scent of sandalwood and night-blooming jasmine. That was the path for believers to come and pray for a peaceful sleep. On the wall, the pair of worship jewels were engraved with the name Gaia Mung. Those who offered the sweet crystal fruit in the dark night would be granted a dream without sad memories. The soft chirping of crickets in the long corridors was accompanied by the invisible music of Morpheus. Euthymia found a small room with a cedar floor. On the stone table, there was a round mirror forged by Hephaestus, framed in silver. She raised her last cup, inviting Morpheus to drink with her, although the dream god needed only one sip. Today he wanted to share the last drop with the honey bearer. When their eyes met in the mirror, an endless moment was suspended. Euthymia, god and mortal, sharing the same desire to sink into a peaceful sleep. She put down her glass and pulled the tablecloth embroidered with wild flowers. Morpheus waved his hand. The forest of dreams was silent, and the pearl of dew on the glass window of the night faded. Euthymia bowed her head in farewell. Her feet stepped out into the pale moonlight, leaving behind her the scent of honey and the lullaby of peacocks. The palace gates closed, the mist surrounded them, and the path melted into the darkness, waiting for the day she would return to offer nectar to her dreams. In the dim light of the morning, when the last dewdrops still clung to the leaves and the ground was still damp and slightly humid, Euthymia slowly entered the deeper reaches of the forests of dreams. Here, the giant trees weaved their roots into a dense network, covering the forest like a thick carpet, and only the weak rays of sunlight penetrated. The leaves rustled softly. But today, amid all the noise, she heard a deep whisper, as if Mother Earth Gaia was sadly sharing a 1,000-year-old secret. Each step she took on the winding roots made a deep, velvety sound as they rustled past her heels. Euthymia paused, her hand brushing lightly against the rough rhizome. For a moment she felt the breath of the earth, a slow but steady breath that filled her lungs with the scent of forest, humus, and water fern. Eyes wide, the honey carrier listened to Gaia speak. Our path leads not only to dreams, but also to the hearts of living beings. The whisper was not made in sound, but through the vibrations of the roots, harmonizing with the pulse of her veins. Euthymia trembled slightly, because Gaia's words were not just a gentle lullaby, but a reminder. Cherish the last drop of honey, for it contains the soul of the forest. She bent down, gently placing her cheek on the roots, as if enjoying the underground flow of life, so that her heart would become clear and ready to receive the profound message. As she walked, she realized the trees were learning to communicate with each other. Their rhizomes were no longer merely anchored to the ground, but were also stretching out to share nutrients and news. One tree had shed its leaves the night before, another had huddled to avoid the mist. Euthymia smiled faintly, understanding that the forest was not just a source of nectar for the dream god, but a living community of all kinds: moss, dry season, orphaned mushrooms, and towering trees. And Gaia, in her whispers, was teaching her to respect each innocent sprout. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the scent of herbs, a sign from Gaia that she should follow to the west, where a large stone carved with a lion and a lotus flower lay hidden deep inside. The stone, it was whispered, had once been a tablet inscribed with the ancient dream of the god of sleep, who had passed on the task of honey collecting to the nymphs. Euthymia touched the engraving, and each crack echoed like an ear, echoing the old story: he who gives is worthy of receiving. The light around her grew dimmer, but she discovered a heart-shaped hollow in the root zone, a natural formation that only worn feet could unintentionally leave. Euthymia knelt down, placed the basket of honey beside her, and stood on tiptoe to touch the root intersection again. Gaia said this was the central place of faith, a coordinate that was not on the map, only visible when the soul was truly calm. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the vibrations from the earth's heart spread throughout her body, erasing the distance between herself and nature. In that sacred moment, she heard all the sounds: the underground stream, the gentle dance of roots, the breathing of moldal in a wordless symphony. And Gaia whispered, "Your nectar is not just a dream, it is life, a promise between heaven and earth." Euthymia touched a drop of nectar still clinging to the tip of the sycamore leaf and brought it to her lips. The cool sweetness flowed through, and she felt Gaia's hand gently touch her shoulder, a touch of radiance. Gently, she rose, placed the basket of honey on her shoulder, and continued on her way. The whispers followed her, reminding her that each step was an offering to Gaia, profound thanks to the forest. The mists parted, revealing a path that led to the honey-drinking wind, where Euthymia would encounter the most sensitive winds, echoing Gaia's words. As she left the center of faith, the forest turned east as if to say goodbye, its branches and leaves gently shaking around Euthymia. And she, the honey-bearer, was the bridge between the forest and Olympus, between awakening and dreaming. The space of Mungdai forest became strangely quiet when Euthymia entered the area where the wind often passed. It was not a normal wind, but a wind that knew how to drink honey. It did not carry the cold of the mountain wind, nor the salty scent of the sea wind, but was as sweet as the breath of a crystal stream when mixed with nectar. Each gust of wind whistling through the leaves carried a sweet scent, brushing across your neck like a gentle caress of a hand. As Euthymia approached a mossy crevice, she took a deep breath, and strangely enough, at that moment the wind carried the scent of the nectar she had offered Morpheus earlier that morning. The rich scent of honey lingered in the air, awakening her senses, and she wondered, did the wind also crave the sweetness of dreams? She turned, watching the platinum wind caressing the tree trunks, seeing the faint light in the leaves, like a wordless letter to the travelers. The wind here was not in a hurry. It drifted leisurely, lightly, landing on the branches and leaves, then curled up, sliding past Euthymia's face, leisurely as a wanderer, not caring about direction. Every time the wind touched her lips, a sweet aftertaste lingered, reminding her that she was not only the bearer of honey, but also the one who sowed the fragrance of dreams. Hearing this, she smiled slightly and nodded, lifted her skirt, and let the wind leisurely carry her deeper into the heart of the forest. Amidst the wild trees, Euthymia found a small basket woven from palm leaves hanging from a branch. Inside were a few drops of nectar left over from yesterday's most delicious food for the wind. She carefully scooped it out, spreading each drop thinly onto the mysterious leaf. As soon as the nectar touched the leaf, the wind caressed it, taking the first sip and lifting it up, spreading its warm, bird-like scent. As each drop was shared, the wind grew softer, embracing Euthymia like an old friend. Continuing on, she came to a clearing where the light slanted through the trees, creating a shimmering streak like a natural dance hall. In the middle, a bush of iridescent flowers bloomed, a flower that only had time to open for a few hours before it withered. Euthymia tossed a few drops of nectar onto the flower, and the flower seemed to absorb it, releasing a thin curtain of light, causing the wind to draw it around. Whispering like a melodious song, she stood firm, listening to the wind, humming something that could not be heard with her ears, but could be felt in her heart. In a magical moment, Euthymia suddenly saw the silhouette of Morpheus gliding past the ancient stone pillar. He smiled, saying that the wind was the faithful messenger of dreams, carrying nectar to every corner of Olympus too, so in the souls of the gods. Morpheus reached out, took the last drop of nectar she carried, then turned, letting the wind carry the sweet scent far and wide. Euthymia stood still, feeling the scent linger on her skin, like a dreamy dance. Dreams. As the wind faded to the west, Euthymia sharing her nectar with the jealous winds of dreams. She let herself be carried by the last gust of wind, letting it lull her back onto the moss-covered rock, and let her soul follow the wordless lullaby. Under the canopy of leaves, wind and nectar mingled, weaving a dreamy tapestry of sound, lulling her into a deep mythical sleep, so that when she awoke the next morning she could continue her journey, bringing the nectar to the land of endless dreams. The space of the long dream forest still held the sweet scent of nectar. When Euthymia returned to the crevice where the old drops of nectar lay silently, those drops had once flowed through her fingers, rushed into the lotus pond, or been offered to Morpheus under the starlight. Now, in the heart of the dried lotus shell, they rested like dormant memories, waiting to be awakened by the dawn. Euthymia gently took out a drop of clear nectar and placed it lightly on her fingertip. The faint light passed through the surface of the drop, painting a faint golden color on her skin. When she brought the drop to her nose, she inhaled deeply, and the warm, sweet scent filled her chest. It was not the fresh, sweet scent of early morning honey, but the echoes of past dreams, dreams of vineyards winding across the sky, dreams of palaces hidden in the mist, dreams of the evening dream god. Each drop of old nectar holds a story. The first time Morpheus smiled when offered the cup, the first time the insects played a song for the 5 colored flowers, the wind shivered after the last sip. Euthymia closed her eyes, letting her mind drift back to those moments. In her dreams, She saw herself floating in a soft light where the drop of nectar fell into the water. The dream blossomed like a dew flower. Then she imagined a miniature painting. Olympus waving at the sparkling drop, the gods sitting around the crystal lake, their mouths still filled with ethereal smiles. Strange colors, bluish blue, pink and purple mixed with silver mist painted the space like a play of images. Euthymia was moved because the honey not only nourishes the body but also nourishes the imagination, making each person who drinks it see a dreamy world open up. Once, while offering nectar to the muses hidden in a cave, she left the last drop in the palm of her hand, letting it drift away on the wind. As a result, endless poems poured out from the cliff, making everyone who passed by stop and listen. Such was the magic of the old honey. It not only gave dreams, but also inspired immortality. Thinking of this, Euthymia smiled slightly, not rushing to drink the current drop of honey. Instead, she gently placed it on the mossy rock, letting each rock engraved with the imprint of time ooze its own story. The forest was strangely silent, as if cherishing the moment of memory. The old drops of nectar had just been allowed to awaken, telling the story of a myth that had been forgotten. Then Euthymia bowed her head, whispering thanks with the still fragrant drops of honey. Thank you for capturing the beauty that once bloomed. Thank you for awakening the dreamer's heart. Thank you for connecting Olympus to the dream world. As she stood up, the rock seemed to sob softly, sending faint vibrations that spread to the roots of the tree. Her footprints left, but the old nectar drops still lingered on the stone surface. They shimmered faintly in the flickering light like a promise. Whoever returned here would continue to hear. The untold stories would continue the stream of dreams and would always find in the long dream forest a part of sweet memories enough to lull them into a deep sleep, and perhaps never fully awaken. As the old drops of honey dried up between the dried lotus pods, the long dream forest suddenly fell silent. No rustling leaves, no singing insects, only the heavy breath of nature that had yet to awaken. Euthymia walked through the thick, dry mist, each step echoing off the thin layer of yellow leaves, echoing like a drumbeat announcing an abnormality. This season, according to the ancient cycle, the long dream forest was dreamless. The ancient trees did not whisper. The crystal stream was as still as a mirror, and not a single wind dared to whistle through the leaves, simply because there was no nectar to drink. That year, Euthymia found the basket of honey empty when she went to the crystal stream as usual. The olive leaf cup was empty. The crystal stream had only rocks submerged in the water, and the lotus pod had only a few specks of dust, the last drop that had strayed off the map. Filled with shock, she walked through the dreaming forest, to every tree, to every root, but found no trace of the honey. The insects stopped singing. The wind stopped singing, and it seemed as if Morpheus himself had fallen asleep, not bothering to open his eyes. Euthymia knelt before a giant rhizome, the center of the faith that had once echoed Gaia's whispers, and called out Morpheus' name. The silence was so deafening that she could hear her heart beating. All memories of the sweet nectar seemed to have vanished, leaving behind an empty song. Where was the dream god? Had he left the dream woods to fall into nothingness, with no more honey to feed the mythical sleeping bird? Amidst this, Euthymia wept. She wept for the drops of nectar that had fallen into the lotus pond, the first time Morpheus had smiled, the last time the insects had sung the song of nature. Her tears rolled down, mixing with the dried dew, forming new drops, but though nature coveted them, they could not replace the divine nectar. Euthymia wiped her tears away, stood up, determined to find answers. She returned to the crystal well, the birthplace of nectar. The well was still clear, but there was no sound. Euthymia knelt down, listening to the echoes of her heart. Suddenly, a faint flow sounded like the sigh of the earth. The water moved slightly, just enough to reveal a thin layer of algae. Euthymia scooped up a ladle of water, tried to sip it. Tasted sweet. Of course, crystal water was never sweet. Only nectar tasted like dreams. But as she listened to the water, she realized, to have nectar, she needed the nectar of the colorful flowers in that patch of forest. Thinking of the 5-colored flower that bloomed only for a moment, Euthymia quickly returned to the flower land where she had once lovingly offered nectar to the wind and the peacock Mung Long. But that season the flower refused to bloom. There was no light from outside, no enough water. The forest stopped all its streaming rhythms. The flowers were silent. The trees covered their roots. Faced with the thorny situation, she could only carry an empty basket alone and set off for Mung Long City, hoping to find Morpheus, hoping that the dream god would still be incarnated to rescue Mung Long Forest from the drought of sleep. When Euthymia stepped through the gates, the palace was plunged into darkness. There was no light from fountains or gilded metal, only the shadow of the throne. She called Morpheus' name, and suddenly she heard soft footsteps like butterfly wings on cold stone. Morpheus appeared, his sad eyes reflected in the dim light of the half-lit candle. Nectar, he said, was the thread that binds dreams, but dreams must come from inspiration, not just divine food. Euthymia, Morpheus whispered, you gave me sweet nectar, but you forgot to weave the forest a dream. And only unbroken dreams can nourish the flowers of 5 colors of 5 colors. Euthymia suddenly understood she was only a honey carrier, not a dreamer. Nectar was only fuel, while the core was ideas, aspirations. If the dreaming forest did not sleep forever, she would have to become a storyteller weaving new legends, singing its own lullabies to make the flowers bloom. By the dim moonlight, Morpheus led her to the empty room. On the ancient wooden floor, he wrote in smoky ink on the ground, "Tell the forest your dreams, whisper them like the wind, and the flowers will bloom, for dreams never dry up." Euthymia bowed her head slightly, feeling a new strength in her chest, the strength of a storyteller, of one who can rekindle dreams. The next morning, when she returned to the rainbow, the dawn no longer closed its eyes. Euthymia told the trees, told the rocks, told each flower stories of Olympus, of love, of freedom, of the wonderful encounters between Morpheus and the insects. At the story, the tree's core trembled, and the first buds opened. The wind whistled softly, singing a new dream, bringing sweet nectar to every leaf. And so, the dreaming forest no longer has a dreamless season, even though honey is not offered every morning. Dreams return thanks to Euthymia's stories, a lullaby that needs no nectar. Because dreams and imagination are eternal miracles in themselves. As the night drew in, the canopy of the forest seemed to be covered with a black velvet carpet, and Euthymia knew it was time to summon Morpheus. She returned to the mist throne in the dream city, where the stars shone through the glass dome, creating silvery rays across the night. The candles lining the corridors had all gone out, only a few still burning softly, as if waiting for the most sacred moment. Euthymia gently placed the palm basket before the throne. There was no nectar inside. Instead, she carried the fresh essence of the forest seeds of early blooming iridescent flowers. Morpheus did not need divine food to awaken, but a spark of desire, a new dream song to sow his dreams. She broke off each seed and scattered them upon the throne, like a magical fire. In the silence, the air vibrated with a cool breeze. Drops of evening dew rolled down the stone pedestal, reflecting the dance of the moonlight. Euthymia closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. "O immortal Morpheus, come from the void, bring with you the flame of a new dream, the morning of hope in the old forest." The whisper faded into the air, and when she opened her eyes, Morpheus appeared not from the doorway, but from the moonlight surrounding the throne. His silhouette was as shadowy as cigarette smoke, his eyes as starry as night. Over his slender shoulders, he wore a cloak woven of smoke and starlight. Without a word, Morpheus bent down, took a deep breath, and scattered the seed across the throne. As soon as the seed touched the throne, a small flame flared up, spreading like twin candles in the night. The fire did not heat the stone, but emitted a faint purple light, a dreamy light. In that streak of firelight, Euthymia saw the graveyard of memories in the dreamwood. Faded flowers, missed winds, forgotten drops of honey. Morpheus's light penetrated, healing the cracks, warming every tree, every flower. The insects began to chirp softly, the long dream quail called softly to their flock, and then the whole forest broke into a melodious song. Morpheus raised his hand, and a purple light spread throughout the forest, confirming that the dream flame had taken shape. A new dream had begun. Euthymia felt every vibration, the earth, the water, the trees, and even the moths were all alive. The sky was lit up by a gentle shower of stars, streaks of light falling on the leaves like rain of happiness. Mythical seeds sprouted before his eyes, growing into new shoots bathed in moonlight. The long dream forest not only revived, but also changed. Colorful flowers bloomed brilliantly. The crystal streams sang melodious notes, and the air gently breathed in the scent of new honey. Morpheus smiled, his voice echoing in the air. "Dreams are not mere illusions, but the language of the heart. Let this flame guide every weary soul." She bowed her head in response, feeling the warm flame pass through her fingers, seeping into her veins. As Morpheus vanished with the moonlight, the mist throne was left with only a faint glow. Euthymia stood in the purple light, breathing deeply, remembering the magical moment. The flame of a new dream had been kindled, and it was she, the honey-bearer and the dreamer, who would lead the long dream forest into an era of peace. In silence, she drew out the olive leaf cup, empty of nectar, but filled with violet flame. Euthymia slowly placed the cup on the stone table, letting its light spread throughout the palace. Though no one but she and Morpheus witnessed it, the forest, the night sky, and the very stardust were awake, ready to sing a hopeful dream song. And when she stepped out onto the path, the flame of each drop of dream still lingering on the hem of her dress, the wind would carry the light across the forest, sowing a gentle lullaby into the hearts of countless small creatures. Morpheus gave the flame of a new dream to Euthymia so that from now on, every step, every breath, would become an endless lullaby to Olympus. Night had risen. The pure moonlight swirled through the ancient treetops, drawing silver lines on the leaves of the night dew. In the quiet space, from afar, a clear bell rang out, not the familiar temple bell, but a faint metallic sound, as clear as the breath of sharp iron melting into melody. That night bell rang out from a small temple nestled in the heart of the long dream forest, where all the gods of dreams gathered to watch the changes of Olympus's sleep. Euthymia followed the sound of the bells, listening to each ringing sound as it rose high and fell silently into the crevices of the rocks. Each sound seemed to awaken a star beneath the foliage. It flared up, sparkling like a small diamond, then spun, spreading its pure light across the night. In that moment, she believed that Morpheus had placed these bells to awaken hidden spirits, to call the dream god back to his sacred work. Passing through the temple gates, Euthymia saw a rows of silver bells hanging from the eaves. They were engraved with the names of each god: a tiny Hypnos, a long dangling Thalassa, a deep Chronos. Each bell emitted its own frequency. Hypnos rang softly like a breath. Thalassa resounded like the sound of waves. Chronos rang deeply, marking time. When the wind blew, they gently touched each other, creating a strange chorus, enough to make one's soul want to close their eyes and lean into the notes. Euthymia closed her eyes and listened. She felt the vibrations spread through the air, seeping into her chest, reminding her heart to join the dance of the stars. In the cool breeze, she reached out to touch a Chronos bell and tried to ring it gently. The deep sound of the bell rang, followed by a long streak of light on the leaves. Hearing this, Euthymia smiled, because the bell not only awakened the stars, but also awakened the sleeping soul. The pearl of memory gently swaying, ready to shine when the dream returned. The chimes grew softer as Euthymia entered the main hall. The white stone floor reflected silvery light under the moonlight that slanted through the hole in the roof, transforming the room into a miniature sea of stars. In the center, an ebony altar was carved with wings, a symbol of Morpheus's dream journey. On the altar sat a crystal vase containing drops of purple nectar, still glowing purple from the night before. When the bell rang, the altar shook, and the crystals swayed, reflecting a rainbow of light like dewdrops. Euthymia knelt down and placed the basket of seeds and a few drops of purple nectar on the pedestal. She raised her face slightly, allowing the moonlight to illuminate her radiant eyes. The bell rang one last time, then fell silent, giving way to the silent symphony of nature. In that welcoming light, Euthymia whispered, "May all the gods awaken. Bring nectar into dreams, so that the stars will not fall asleep." The prayer dissolved into space, trembling with the last streak of light. In no time, thousands of stars were twinkling around the temple roof, as if summoned from the far reaches of space to pay their respects. Euthymia felt that she was no longer alone in the night forest. She became the guide, using bells and drops of nectar to spread the light of dreams to the ends of Olympus. Each star blinked as if to say hello, then pierced the night, gently touching the branches and leaves, lighting up small spots of light, guiding the dreamer back. As the night wind caressed the stones, Euthymia stood up, inhaling deeply the scent of damp leaves and silver bell ashes mixed with dew. She turned and walked out through the temple gate, leaving behind her a sky of awakening stars. The path home was now clearly visible. The starlight guided the way, the distant sound of the bells echoed. On her small shoulders, the basket of seeds and the cup of purple nectar were burdened with a new mission to carry the light of dreams to every heart. When she reached the crystal stream, the bell had stopped ringing, but its sweet scent still lingered on the water, like a divine trace. Euthymia put down her basket, bent down to scoop up a ladle of the stream, mixed it with a few seeds and drops of purple nectar to make a new fragrance. She knew that when dawn came, every vapor would carry a dream, telling the story of the night bell and the awakening of 1,000 stars. And in that moment, as she closed her eyes to offer sacrifices to the jungle, Euthymia believed that every god, no matter how deep in sleep, would hear the bell and awaken amidst the sea of stars, ready to receive a new dream woven from nectar, spiritual fire, and never-ending wonder. The rustling sound of the forest was no longer confined to the rustling of leaves, but spread throughout the space like an invisible wave, powerful and intimate. As Euthymia closed the temple door behind her and stepped out into the vast expanse of forest, she suddenly felt every tree trunk, every root breathing to the rhythm of the night bell. Every moment, the forest not only listened to her prayer, but also responded with a powerful sound like an echo originating from deep within the earth. Stepping over the mossy boulder, Euthymia heard the soft, deep sound of the roots flexing and contracting. It was not the sound of the wind, nor the rustling of leaves, but rather the deep, deep notes of a violin. Each breath she took was answered by a soft, wistful "oh" from the forest, as if inviting, "Come closer, listen to me." She paused, placed her hand on the rough bark, and suddenly felt a warm vibration spread through her arm, the first spiritual power the forest had ever given her. Next, from the thick foliage, the sounds of animals slowly rose. At first, it was just the chirping of crickets, then the soft call of owls, interspersed with the rustling of cicadas that seemed to shatter. Euthymia silently watched the branches and leaves, seeing each cicada flutter its wings like a drum, each owl holding its chin as if singing a ritual song. The forest, which had been silent during the dreamless season, now spoke softly, responding to the call of the night bells and nectar, a chorus woven with the breath of life. In the distance, the crystal stream meandered around the rocks, the small drops of water hitting each other, creating a vague luokadu. The sound of the stream was no longer just a flow, but a song to Euthymia. Water and honey have blended. Let them guide your steps. When she bent down, placing the water ladle to her ear, she clearly heard a whisper. "I flow back to the source, like a dream returning to its roots." Euthymia closed her eyes, letting that negative energy seep through her ears, enter her ears, and then blend with her heartbeat. The space above seemed to open up into another sky, the foliage parted in the dim light, revealing a small bird's nest woven from spider silk. The nest vibrated, signaling that the forest was connecting with her, building a shared spiritual space. Euthymia touched the nest, feeling the soft warmth, like a gentle embrace. Suddenly, a stiff-winged ivory feather fell from the nest, a sign of peace. Just one feather, but the wind's negative force told her that she had been accepted by the forest. The forest seemed not content to stop its sound. It also painted a picture of light. Spots of luminescence suddenly appeared between the dark leaves, flickering yellow and green, circling Euthymia like a swarm of fireflies. The light was not blinding, it was fragile, vague, like a wordless lullaby, covering her with a cloak of mist. Every time Euthymia breathed, the spots of light rose up, wrapping around her body, as if granting her the power to light the way through the darkness. Before her, a stone carved with a coiled serpent's head, a mark of Asclepius, the god of healing. The stone's yin energy not only vibrated, but also emitted a gentle herbal scent, mint, sandalwood, and a touch of orange peel. Euthymia reached out and rubbed the serpent's head, inhaled deeply, and felt the healing energy spread through her fingertips. It was the message. Spiritual yin energy not only cures nightmares but also heals wounds. She smiled slightly, feeling as if she had just received a magical medicine for her soul. The cicada drumming sounded again, this time in a loud, inviting voice. Euthymia opened the olive leaf cup, where a little purple nectar was hidden deep inside. She raised the cup, sniffed it, and took a small sip. In an instant, the forest's energy changed. Soft winds stirred the branches. Crystal streams flowed to the tops of the trees, and dots of light gathered into a miniature galaxy. She swirled the cup, watching the faint purple streak in the stream of light, the ink to write the spiritual story the forest had just revealed. In that moment, Euthymia heard Morpheus' voice echoing from afar. The spiritual power lies in the connection between water, wind, earth, and spirit. His voice seemed to blend into the symphony of nature, making her realize that she was not only the bearer of nectar, but also the carrier of the sacred breath of Olympus. From now on, her every step, every breath would echo in the forest, like the final note closing the dreamy love song. As Euthymia left the rocky crevice, following the streak of light, the forest echoed with her response. The spiritual power will guide you through the darkness, keeping the flame of your dreams from ever dying. She walked through the roots and leaves, leaving behind her footprints imprinted with vibrations not only of her body, but also of her soul that had merged with the mesmeric forest. The next journey was the mission of spreading that spiritual power, so that all who wandered into the long dream could find a gentle lullaby amidst the storms of life. The sky of Mangdai Forest suddenly became quiet. The stars were no longer scattered but gathered into a bright circle above the treetops. In that moment of stillness, Euthymia noticed a vague movement on the forest wall. Morpheus's shadow, half hidden, half visible, pressed against that space as if wanting to blend into every breath of the earth. The night bells had subsided, giving way to the distinct sounds of hearts and breaths. Painting a magical whispering intersection, she could feel her own heartbeat steady, punctuated by the soft breathing of the wind. Then Morpheus came, his steps as light as falling dew, holding out an olive leaf cup with the remaining drops of purple nectar. But instead of handing it to her, he placed his hand on Euthymia's heart. "Listen," he whispered, his voice a smoky whisper. "When your heart and my breath beat as one, the dream will spread throughout the universe." Euthymia closed her eyes and let Morpheus's hand touch her breast. Immediately, a cool current of energy spread, not fire, but the vibrations of crystal water, smooth, transparent, awakening every cell in the night. She put down her glass, leaned against the stone, and felt her heart beat to the primal drum. Morpheus placed his palm on the same beat, and the two heartbeats resonated like two symphonic notes. In that moment, the forest was no longer just a forest, it was a living organism, with roots as its veins, and the wind as its breath moving through the leaves. Euthymia felt her hair quiver, her skin prickle with goosebumps, as if everything were awakening. Morpheus smiled softly, his eyes flashing with a quintessence of lightning, and he scooped up a mouthful of purple nectar with his palm, dripping it drop by drop onto her neck. The sweet scent drifted through the canopy, filling the air, causing insects to chirp softly. Leaves to rustle. The forest seemed to sing a song of connection. "The last drop of honey does not feed dreams, but binds to souls," Morpheus whispered in the night, "so that dreams are not illusions, but life." Euthymia sipped the nectar, soothing her anguish, dispelling the dew from her heart. She looked at Morpheus, and saw him no longer a blur but as clear as the crystal bubbles sparkling in her hands. Their hearts beat as one, and the purple light split into many directions, staining roots, foliage, and mossy rocks. The whispers of two hearts spread, weaving a veil of wordless sound, and Morpheus sang a narration. He told of ancient dreams. When the Titans were in power, Olympus was deep in darkness, and only the dream of the beginning kept the gods from falling into nothingness. He told of the first time the angel Eos rippled the sun, glowing the horizon pink, or when the god Hermes secretly let the souls fly on the wind. Morpheus's voice was as smooth as silk, penetrating every leaf, making the palace in the middle of the forest resound with a classical melody like a dreamy silk melody. Euthymia listened attentively, realizing that her mission was not limited to offering honey. She and Morpheus were now entrusted with a greater mission: to revive memories, to inspire all living things. When he finished speaking, Morpheus bent his hand, and the ancient ritual was reenacted. A mark was carved into the earth, imprinted with the shape of the heartbeats that had just crossed. Euthymia lowered her hand, and saw a streak of light imprinted on the stone, a streak that only a mythical heartbeat could create. The surrounding space suddenly shook, and then a great wave of vibration spread. Ancient trees bent to the rhythm. Crystal streams flowed rhythmically. Insects sang softly in harmony. The dream forest woke up proudly. The tree hairs trembled. Soft leaves clung to the strings, ready to sacrifice to the dream. Morpheus and Euthymia stood in the middle of the dance of negative energy. Two souls intertwined, leading a grand dream symphony. When the climax passed, Morpheus took her hand, leaving behind a crystal bead containing a drop of purple nectar, a sacred object of the heart's communion. "Take this with you," he said, "to remember that dreams are eternal only when the heart is open." Euthymia placed the crystal in her basket, feeling it warm with the beat of her heart, as if promising to fuel her further dreams. In the purple night, the two of them left the throne of mist, walking across the bridge with the sound of the stream. Each step was a new breath of the forest. Each beat of the heart was a wordless melody. They did not say more, because the whispers between them were enough to echo to the ends of the earth. Returning to the shore of the crystal stream, Euthymia looked at the crystal in her hand, its purple light reflecting the crescent moon. She put away the basket of honey and the scattered seeds, leaving only the crystal engraved with the heartbeat. Placing it on the water, the light spread out, the purple fragments gently dissolving, spreading to the furthest roots of the tree, a call to a new dream. Euthymia gently closed her eyes, listening to the sound of the stream whispering. "The spiritual power intertwined in your heart has awakened the forest of dreams. Now continue your mission, weaving dreams from your breath, from your heartbeat, so that Ai who enters here will find eternal peace." Time passed like mist. The dreaming forest still kept its mythical breath, but the mission of offering honey and sowing dreams could not be placed on Euthymia's shoulders forever. One sunset, when the sun died, the leaves purple, she brought along a small figure. The little nymph Oriana, her niece, her eyes sparkling with curiosity at each streak of honey and the tree trunks bending in the sunset. They sat by the crystal spring, where Euthymia had once received Gaia's whispers. She gently scooped water into the ladle, showing Oriana how to listen to the gentle lapping of the spring, the heartbeat of the spring, the first lifeblood of all nectar. "Remember," Euthymia whispered, "before you make honey, you must know the murmur of the water, so you will know when the spring is clear enough to receive the honey." Oriana tilted the ladle, her ear to the mouth of the pot, listening attentively for each small click, then nodded silently. Then they entered the ancient root zone, the center of faith where Gaia had shared her secrets. Euthymia placed her child's hand on the root bark, teaching her how to feel the spiritual vibrations. "It's not a sound," she explained, "but a strange feeling, a gentle vibration that runs through your hand, through your heart, and makes you know you're connected to the earth." Oriana closed her eyes, placed her palm on the root, and was startled to feel a gentle vibration, perhaps Gaia's response to the new generation. On the purple path leading into the deepest part of the forest, Euthymia showed Oriana where the 5 colored flowers were in full bloom. "This seed," she said, taking a dried lotus pod from her basket, "contains the history of all dreams. You must know how to preserve it and scatter it at the right time, so that the forest will always dream." Oriana held each seed carefully, her eyes sparkling like dewdrops, treating the seeds as treasures, because in reality, they were the future of a peaceful Olympus. Late at night, they reached the Temple of Silver Bells. Euthymia explained to her the rhythms of Hypnos, Thalassa, and Chronos, and how each bell had to be struck in the right rhythm, not too fast, not too slow, to awaken the stars without disturbing the forest of dreams. Oriana tried striking a small bell. The sound was as delicate as a first voice, and Euthymia smiled happily. "I have caught the rhythm of dreams." The next day, they entered the Garden of 5 Colors, where Oriana would learn how to collect nectar. Euthymia took a small bamboo tube, placed it on the 5-color flower, and gently twisted it. Drops of the nectar essence fell into the tube. She reminded, "Only when the flower blooms in the moonlight, the nectar is sweet. Don't be hasty. Wait for the moment of glory." Oriana quietly observed, then pressed the bamboo tube into the flower herself, collecting the first drops of purple light. Her niece's eyes were as bright as the night flowers. In the afternoon, they returned to the orange greenhouse. Euthymia showed Oriana how to preserve nectar. "Mix it with crystal water in precise proportions. Store it in a crystal decanter so light doesn't alter the flavor. Nectar is not only for dreams, it connects your soul to its source," she instructed. Oriana carefully memorized each step, from choosing the clear crystal drops to the proportions of seeds to sealing the glass jar. More than just the technicalities, Euthymia taught her niece the heart of the honey-bearer: patience, reverence for nature, and the ability to listen. She told Oriana about her journey with Morpheus, the moment their hearts met, and how the spiritual energy spread throughout the dreamwoods. "Carry this story with you," Euthymia said, "so that when the wind blows it away, it will tell the world of our mission." Oriana nodded silently, took from her bosom a small handkerchief shaped like a rainbow flower, and sewed the family crest to Heart's meeting. At the end of the day, they sat by the crystal fountain, placed the olive leaf cup on the stone pedestal, and took a sip of the refreshing purple nectar. Euthymia smiled as her niece took the first sip. "This will bring back memories," she whispered, "so you won't forget the feeling of your first offering of honey." Oriana held the cup in her hands, her eyes sparkling with longing, and let out a small sigh of relief. Now her niece was ready to take on the sacred mission, before leaving the forest quietly. Euthymia placed her hand on Oriana's shoulder and instructed, "When you are old enough, bring other young nymphs here. Tell them about the crystal spring, the seed, the silver bell, and the heart of harmony. Only then will the dream of Olympus continue." Oriana tilted her head slightly, the starlight reflecting on her hair, like the first mark of the second generation. With her cup empty, her basket of seeds light, and her heart pure, Oriana walked away, leaving behind a faint purple light. Euthymia watched silently, her eyes filled with pride. The mission was never about weight, but about spreading fire. And as the shadows of grandmother and grandchild merged with the shadows of the trees on the ground, the dreamwood whispered with joy. The fire of dreams had been passed on, and a new chapter would continue to weave the never-ending story of peaceful Olympus.